the Radio Forest Podcast.
How are you? Yes, I can hear you. Jay, can you hear?
I can.
Black Jacket Symphony, what's happening? You guys are coming to Nampa March 3rd. The last time I talked to you was in 2022 with Zeppelin 4. So what's been going on the last 3 years in a general sense?
In a general sense, we have been touring the country playing, about 115 shows a year and having an absolute blast. We're getting to go out and play this music that is some of, as Jay says, the music that every generation says is their generation's music is the best. This generation just happens to be right. So we're out playing some of the greatest music that ever was written and played, and just getting to have a great time bringing it to life every night on stage.
We're talking to Jay and Jason with the Black Jacket Symphony. They're going to play Abbey Road. So you're talking about the greatest music of all time. So I'm on the radio side, so I just don't – there's good new songs. I'll give them that. Like there's songs that I enjoy, but there's not albums I'm devouring. Do you think I've aged out of that? Or I tend to agree with you. I just think they're better albums, to be honest with you.
Yeah, they're definitely better albums. And it's also a matter of technology, if you kind of think of it that way. I mean, back in the 50s, it was the singles-driven market, so it was just single songs. But in the classic album, when it was launched, basically like 1966 with the Rubber Soul or Sgt. Pepper or Pet Sounds, albums were made to be listened to as a whole. Then as it went along, CDs started coming out, and you could skip songs, and then now it's just streaming. So it's almost like it was in the 1950s. There's no real reason to release an album now because people don't really listen to full albums. Back when they came out on vinyl, they made albums to be listened to as a whole because you kind of had to.
But you're right. I never thought about that before, kind of like maybe the pop doo-wop sense. Like if you had a hit song for teenagers, you were done. If you're the Big Bopper, you're like, right. I'm set for life. I don't have to do anything else. I can play a couple other songs live, but we're on the radio, we're on TV, we've made it.
Yeah, that's very true. And then I think it was in like 1968, 69 when albums started outselling singles. So they were made to be listened to. So then you get things like Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd, that is a continuous song cycle. So you can't, skip a song. You could, but you don't want to. So that's what these albums were made to be listened to as a whole. So it's an honor for us to go and recreate these albums as a whole. And Abbey Road is one of my personal favorites. It's also the first one Black Jacket Symphony ever did.
So, yeah, it's Abbey Road, and then you mentioned Dark Side of the Moon, which I'm pretty sure you guys have done. We talked before about Zeppelin 4. I know you've done Rumors by Fleetwood Mac, and over 40 different albums. Might not be a question you can answer, but is there one that's harder than the others?
They all have their challenges in different ways. It's kind of funny. I remember the first time we were going to do a Rolling Stones album, and I kind of thought to myself, well, finally just, some rock and roll. This will be a little easier. Well, it was hard to be very specifically sloppy.
Yeah, Keith.
That makes sense. So they all have their challenges. Some obviously are a little harder than others. The White Album is difficult just because it covers so much ground and things like that. But they all have their challenges, believe me.
It's got to take some dedication because if you're sitting down playing guitar and you want to learn a song, like you have to purposely not lose focus and be like, oh, I want to play that little riff, or, oh, wait, that sounds like this, and, oh, I should drop D it. So does it become tedious? You're like, I'm getting pretty sick. I'm getting sick of Abbey Road. It's like, all right, now we got to move to track 5. You're like, yeah, let's play some Beach Boys real quick. You're like, no, we can't. We'll get sidetracked.
Not really. It's a blast. It's fun to kind of really get the nuance of everything. And that's what happens is once you kind of have it down, then you really try to nail just the small things. And even like these are analog recorded albums. This is before you can go back in Pro Tools and fix something or to use Auto-Tune or something like that. So there's little mistakes sometimes throughout these records, and it's fun to try to even recreate the mistake, And so that's what.
And I would say, Jake, too, Jay, that everybody feels like when they come in, if there's somebody new who's coming into the organization or we're doing a new album, everybody feels like that they have to relearn it because they've been playing it a certain way for however long they've been playing music. And we're like, no, we want you to play it wrong, which is actually right.
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes it's easier for somebody to come in completely fresh and not have been playing it a lot. Because usually people play stuff incorrectly, when they're out there, just in a bar band or if you play it, But, when you're doing something specific, it's a lot different.
Who are some more of the funkier artists? Because I know Keith, for the Stones, he takes off the bottom string and then he tunes to open C or something. So you can play a Stones song. You're like, hey, it sounds right. And then you watch him live. You're like, the hell's he doing? Like, what? That's not what I'm playing. And you realize it's off a little bit. But you guys are big on every note, every sound. That's the way you're doing it. It's got to be tough then, right?
It can, like I said, it can be challenging. But you're right. He'd use a lot of open tuning and usually only 5 strings. And it makes a huge difference of the sound. And not only the notes, it's the sound. We try to get the amp sound right. The everything coming out front has to be the same sound that you're hearing on the album. So it's very detail oriented, and we really enjoy the detail.
Can you do any of those digital amps though? Because I don't want to say it's splitting, but technology is always tough. It's like, do you embrace it or do you stay with the analog sound that you love? But I know you can get these amp heads, and then you've got half the stage that you need, and you can just dial it in. You're like, all right, switch it now to 67 Stones, and then now go to Abbey Road, or are you swapping out pedals and guitars every song?
Well, we try to use as much vintage gear as possible to get it's a hybrid, I would say. There are pedals and things and sand amps that will actually get you the sounds. But I have found, and they're getting better. They're getting better. I mean, as we speak, they're getting better right now. But I have found that the pedals and the things you dial into a Tweed amp, Fender Tweed amp, it's close, but it's not like using a Fender Tweed amp.
When you're doing some of these albums, it's got to be like, oh yeah, that's a classic Beatles album. I already know that sonically. I've been playing professionally for a while, so I could probably pick it up. But there's got to be a couple albums where there's like 2 or 3 songs. You're like, I've always skipped this one. This one I actually don't know, because for me, the classic albums, there's always the ones you're like, I'm not in the mood for that one, and then 3 years later, you're like, actually, I don't even really know how they get into the chorus.
Yeah, but as Jason has said before, that some of the joy we have is bringing some of these deeper cuts to people. So, but you're right. There's certain ones on an album you've never played before. But again, going back to what I said before, sometimes that's easier because you don't have to relearn anything.
Oh yeah,
you're learning it straight from the top.
Is it difficult too? Because I imagine you've got different people in the band. So say if you were in a different band and you were playing some Beatles songs, you're like, oh, let's play it this way. But then you're going back to more of a realistic way of playing it. I imagine you're like, no, it has to be 2 guitars. So usually I would play all of it on one guitar, but now we got to split it up. You're playing this, and then Harrison overdubbed a solo, so then you got to play that. So you're right. I imagine sometimes you're like, I can't play it the way I learned it.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes that's why you'll see we're not a quote tribute band. Nobody's coming out. And you don't see just 4 guys playing Abbey Road. We have 3 guitar players because of overdubbing, and sometimes we have 4 guitars. Just on Abbey Road, because of, like you just said, overdubbing and things like that. So it takes more.
What are your guys' thoughts on the Beatle documentaries on Disney Plus? I saw the first one, but I haven't seen the newest one that came out. I mean, obviously, they're a lot to undertake and to watch. You really have to go through them. I loved, Get Back. I thought that was fantastic, but I haven't seen the one where they come to America.
I'm glad you watched it, because I was in there watching it thinking this was made only for me. I can't believe anybody else is devouring this like I was. And the new ones just let it be. It's the actual movie that they did in 1970.
Well, isn't there the one where it's them coming to America? What's that one?
Oh, yes, that is another one as well. Yeah, you're right.
I haven't seen that one.
Beatles 64. And it's good. It's pretty good. I preferred Get Back. But then again, more Beatles is better Beatles for me, and that's 9 hours of Beatles as opposed to an hour and a half.
Yeah. So when you say more Beatles is better Beatles, I wanted to ask you guys this because I've been wrestling with it myself. Grammy for, was it Now and Then, the newest Beatles song? And they said they didn't use AI. It was AI technology to clean it up. But I'm afraid to even say it publicly. I don't want new Beatles music. Like, I'm full. Like, I'm happy. Yeah. It's like I'm in the best relationship ever. You're like, hey, what about this side piece? I'm like, no, I'm good. Like, it's Abbey Road. It's the White Album. Like, I don't need, you can't do another one. So I don't want to watch. It's like making a remake of a movie. You're like, I'm good with the original. So do you want new Beatles music or no?
I'm with you a little bit. I mean, I think the next song that's going to be coming out is called "Me and Yoko Can't Answer the Phone Right Now." I mean, that's you're going to put a beat to that. But it's getting a little ridiculous. Although this one made sense, because they did try to record it back when they were doing "Free as a Bird" and "Real Love." And it is better. They are able to get Lennon's voice out of the cassette tape they had and make it sound a little fuller. And it was nostalgic. It made me tear up a little bit, but it's kind of like you said. I'm glad that I think that should be the last one.
Now, do you guys need to get any sort of permission from these bands? Because if you make money off the music, does that change? Because I know you can just cover a song and release it. Like, that's fine. And it's like, yeah, you could do whatever you want to do. Now, if it's going to be in a movie or something like that, then there's different, royalties and songwriting credits. Yeah. So for touring, is it ever a legal jumble to work through?
No, not really, because anybody can play a song live, right? So you go see any current artist and they play a cover of another artist. There's no legal hurdles to jump through there. All in all, it's not too tough.
So you guys have been doing this for a while. We talked about over 40 different albums you've covered. You've had to have people jump up on stage or the real artist at least hear of you, see you, or reach out. I'm sure, right? With traveling across the country, you have to run into somebody. Yeah,
we've run into a couple of people. Friends with some guys in the Pearl Jam camp, and we're out with them one day, and they're aware of what we do, and played one of the guys or texted him a video, and the next day, the next morning at breakfast, he was. I was like, "What'd you think?" And he goes, "Well, my driver asked me what Pearl Jam show I was listening to." So I was like, "All right, well that's a good, that's good." And then Don Henley just he sits at home and surfs the internet looking for people who are doing his music and recreating his music, and he must be a fan because he keeps reaching out telling us we're doing it too good and too close to it, I guess. So I keep pulling down our videos as if we're actually I don't know,
making them look bad.
Have you I guess you kind of, I don't want to say you got to be careful, but that's how Journey got their lead singer. So somebody at some point is going to be like, hey, why don't you guys, you know what, I'm Henley, but I don't want to go, Joe Walsh is busy and, Felder's not getting along well. Why don't you guys tour with me and you'll just be the Don Henley band?
Well, we have had that.
And it's an honor. I mean, really, when we have that happen, it means we're doing something right. But our former guy who actually he sang Beatles with us, he sang some Eagles, he sang some Zeppelin with us as well. He got called up and noticed by Steven Tyler and then joined Aerosmith and did that until they just recently kind of went, can't do it anymore. And he's now out with Ringo and his all-star band. So it's pretty neat. We really we're honored when something like that happens. I mean, our former lighting director just did a small tour for a couple of years with an unknown artist and up-and-comer named Taylor Swift. So
wow.
Yeah, we try to lift everybody up as best we can.
So let's talk about Aerosmith. What should they do? The rest of the guys are fine. Steven Tyler's voice is damaged or shot or, just too hurt to be the demon of screaming. So do they just call it quits? Because I was thinking about this recently. I couldn't see Aerosmith with a different lead singer and calling it Aerosmith. But if Rush went out and did a different, like, hey, it's going to be the last show of Rush and have celebrity drummers fill in, I would be fine if they didn't do an album, but I couldn't see it with Aerosmith. So you're in Aerosmith, you're fine, your singer's out. What do you do?
Well, they all have side projects, number one, but two, like, I don't know. They did Queen featuring Adam Lambert. It's done well, but it doesn't really have the same. No. Steven's just his voice and his timbre are that band. No disrespect to any of the other guys in the band. Do you get a cover guy to get in and then Tyler gets out the harmonica and a tambourine? Because that's like, he's still, I don't know. It's so hard to be like, and now my career's done, but he can't sing. So you guys are professional musicians.
I would be very, very surprised. I mean, Aerosmith is basically very Joe Perry and Steven Tyler. If you don't have the two of them, then like you said, it's unfortunate. Some of the other people could probably be replaced, but I don't think you can replace either one of them and call it Aerosmith.
Have you guys ever ran into, we'll start with Aerosmith, but my two biggest questions are, have you had any, conversations or chances to meet Aerosmith, Beatles, or Zeppelin?
I have not. Buck, the guy that is now playing with him, has invited me to go see. But we're playing so much; it's hard to get out there and do it. And now they're done. So I have not. I'd love to meet one of the Beatles, Sir Paul, if you're listening.
Yeah. Sir Paul's. Yeah, that would be amazing. I want to ask you guys sort of a personal question, but I don't want to know how much money you're making. So don't take it that way. But I know there are a couple of big current rock bands that had tours scheduled up for Europe, and they had to cancel them. They're like, financially, we can't do it. We can't make enough off tickets and fly overseas, either ship our gear or rent gear, and then do all these different venues. It's not enough money. We have to stay in the States to cut down on traveling costs. How has it been, let's say in the last 10 years? Have you had to change how you tour in a financial sense so you can still make a living?
Yeah, I'll answer that one. I mean, it is a challenge every day, and from COVID, obviously that was a real challenge. And coming out of that, I think now we're back at a point where we're at full steam. But yeah, I mean, we've had to make adjustments in terms of number of personnel and production, and we try to be. The challenge for us is that we try to keep our ticket prices as low as possible, right? So you're going to come and see us at the Nampa Civic Center, and tickets are $40, to get in, $40 or $45, and that's for the show you're getting. That's a deal, and that the venue only holds 400 or 450 people, so you can do some quick math there. I mean, it's challenging, but I think we don't do it for the money. We do it for the love of the experience, and we do it so that we can look out in the crowd and see the reactions that people are giving, and it's just different motivation. I think we're obviously not out there to lose money, but we're out there to give parents and grandparents an opportunity to bring their kids to shows that is going to be quality content. It's going to be a shared experience that they're going to remember. We have so many kids come to their first concerts with us, which is truly an honor. So I think if you're doing it for the right reasons in the long run, hopefully it works out for everybody.
But isn't it crazy, though, because the band I was talking about was Godsmack. They had to cancel a South American tour. They're like, we just can't make enough money, so we just can't go there. But then on the flip side, you've got the Eagles at the Sphere in Las Vegas. They just keep adding more shows, and I think the base ticket price is like $230. And I'm like, I can't – who's doing that? And then I know 3 or 4 people that have gone, so I don't know. I mean, it's like when I was a kid, man. If it was,
I know a lot of people who've gone to see that Eagles show, and I'm always surprised. And just in general, there's a surprise at the price of tickets and that people are paying it, and happy for those bands. Sully and Godsmack, there may have been something around. South America is just a tough place to go. Overall, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to tour overseas. It's hard to tour. It's tough. It's a business.
Silly question. Are you guys playing these songs in order? Is Abbey Road, are you starting with side 1, track 1?
Absolutely. And we don't talk between songs. We want it to be as if you're in an organic setting listening to the album live. So we don't talk between songs. It's just like you're listening to the album. Then take a break, and then we come back and do a greatest hits set, and we do talk more, and that's a little more of a celebratory thing, and do some greatest hits of the artist. We go from track 1 to the last track on the album, all the way through.
Now, you said it before, and I completely understand it, but maybe explain it for listeners a little bit. You said this is not a tribute group. Can you explain the difference on if you went to go see a tribute group, what that would be like, and how you guys are different? You mentioned it a little bit, though.
It kind of came to me a while back. I started thinking, the tribute bands are great, and I've enjoyed seeing them. But I went to if you go to a classical symphony, they don't dress up like Mozart and talk in some kind of Austrian accent. They play the piece. So that is what we do. We're not 4 guys acting like with a Liverpool accents, even though we're Southern. And how many people it takes to replicate this record on stage. We all wear black jackets. And that's why we call it the Black Jacket Symphony. And that's really it. It's not a tribute band. You could say it's a tribute to an album, but it's not a tribute band.
So being from the South, You have to rank these, or at least put one of them first. Tom Petty, Skynyrd, Allman Brothers. Where do you rank them?
Oh, Lord. Well, I would go. I'm a personal Tom Petty fanatic, but but you'd have to put Allman Brothers and Petty in the same category. And I love Skynyrd too. Quite honestly, I think they get a bad rap of being kind of the redneck thing. If you listen to their albums, they're almost more based in British blues. Second Helping is almost like a British blues album. Anything else? So I love all three. I would go toward Petty because I'd get to sing the Tom Petty stuff with Black Jacket Symphony.
All right, guys, I appreciate it. It's Jay and Jason, Black Jacket Symphony. They're playing Abbey Road in its entirety, note for note, and then a set of greatest hits playing the Beatles March 3rd, Nampa Civic Center here in Idaho. Guys, thanks for the chat and can't wait for the show.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. We'll see you there.